We have an absolute privilege today to have the whole writing team here. I'd love to introduce them. We've got book by Jennie Redling. Music and concept by Phillip Palmer. And lyrics by Stacey Luftig. By a show of hands, are most of you guys familiar with our Village Originals program? Has anybody else seen a Village Originals? This is so exciting. So let me tell you about something. Our producer Rob Hunt is sitting right there in the back, and we have a lovely program here called Village Originals. And every year we do a whole festival of 5 staged readings that usually happens in August of brand new musicals, new works. And we spend the entire year reading script submissions, choosing from them. They get a reading, and then sometimes we do developmental productions, which are smaller productions across the street at first stage, which is the first chance for the writers to see their work kind of up on its feet with production elements. And then the big step is really this right here, a full production here at Main Stage. And My Heart is the Drum was in the festival 2 years ago, and we fast-tracked you guys. You came right here for full production, which we're very grateful for, with all this lovely music. So what I'm going to do today is ask them a couple questions, and then we'll open up the discussion to you guys to hear what you have to say and any questions you might have. So first of all, can you guys give the audience a bit of history about when you first came up with this show and how you came to work together as a team?
Sure. Am I on? Not yet. Brent?
Yellow mic.
Okay. I'm continuing to talk. Hello, hello. There we go. All right. I'll start since I was the first person to work on the show. Back in 2004 and 2005, I was beginning to study a lot of traditional African music, first in New York, and then I traveled a bit in South Africa and in West Africa, studying choral singing and drumming and traditional xylophone playing, I guess you can call it, and dance. And I just loved the music. I thought it was very theatrical. And as I was traveling, I also learned about a lot of social issues that I found very compelling. That I felt like my friends here in the US didn't know about. The HIV/AIDS epidemic was a big one, and especially the plight of women in Southern Africa, who oftentimes were blamed for the spread of the disease when in reality they often were the least to blame. Also just the lack of economic opportunity, seeing people that really wanted to work but not having any opportunity to get education or unemployment is so high in so many poor countries, so just not having the opportunity to work. So I found these issues really exciting and compelling. I think the last issue that really grabbed me was I was interested in the connection between us here, how what we did here in the United States could affect other people in places like Ghana. And I found this Wall Street Journal article, front page article, about how US cotton subsidies were depressing world prices and putting a lot of cotton farmers in West Africa out of work. And so I did a lot of research and I developed an outline and I started bringing songs without any lyrics or any book into the BMI Musical Theater Workshop in New York. And people liked the music, but they advised me very strongly that writing a musical without any book or lyrics is not a very good thing to do. Another person I was working with at the time and I posted a message on the Dramatists Guild website, and that was responded to by Jennie Redling.
And am I on?
Yeah.
Yes. I was compelled very strongly by Philip's story because there was so many obstacles to a young protagonist. And my background is playwright writing about young women who have obstacles. So that was right from the beginning. And I also have experience. I'm a certified counselor with survivors of violence, domestic violence and sexual violence. So the fact that that was a factor and one of the events that a young woman would have to contend with, in addition to the added threat of HIV, which it was life-threatening. I mean, you can't get higher stakes than life and death stakes. So I found the whole potential of the story very, very compelling. And then I started doing research on Africa, and I was drawn in by so many things. I mean, there's such a richness of celebration of life and an attitude toward life, a spirituality, a respect for ancestors, for family. There's just so much beauty. So I found myself, envisioning characters without a problem and actually really finding joy in creating characters. And then we needed somebody to create lyrics to go with Philip's brilliant music, beautiful music. And I was very lucky to be in the same librettist workshop at BMI with Stacey Luftig. So.
And that's how I became part of the team. I was hearing the scenes being brought in by Jennie into the workshop, and I was very drawn into the story before I even heard any of the music. And they were auditioning for lyricists, and I auditioned, and they liked what I did. For me, this was an incredible opportunity to expand the sort of shows I had worked on. I had done mostly family musicals before, some historical drama, and the chance to go to this completely other country, this other culture, and especially the African rhythms and sounds was thrilling for me. To find a story that speaks to you, that is so true and so rich, was a real gift for me. And I jumped on board, and then the three of us just kept working together.
So what year was it that you all finally were together and moving forward?
I think
2008.
2008. Great.
Yes.
So it's been 8 years in
Yeah.
the process. Then my next question, which you guys kind of already answered, because it's, I think, impossible not to answer this with part of the reason why you're part of it, was what was the core inspiration for the story for each of you? And you guys kind of already answered that, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think Philip had the idea of a young woman and what she has to contend with. And I truly, the whole idea of what we do having impact without us knowing. I didn't know that farm subsidies made the prices of crops and cotton and so forth so low that people were struggling, thousands of miles away. And the whole idea that this is like enormous odds. She's fighting against enormous odds. And that was just so profoundly compelling to me that I had an opportunity to find a character's way of fighting her way to get, to grow and to become what she was potentially had the ability to become, something that we take for granted. So once I did that, there were obvious relationships, and a lot of the research that I did, reading, people, characters, and so forth, interviews and things, I realized that there is an enormous innocence in terms of approach to life, view of life, that has always spoken to me. I think there's a cynicism that our popular culture has been imbued with. And so a lot of what I write, I try to introduce that kind of innocence. And so that the love story, I
All part
found
of that.
I wanted to do that.
Yeah. So within the 8 years, something that as an audience member I often forget is that it's had 8 years of development and changes and additions, and it's not just 8 years of finally reaching to here. There's things that you've had to let go and things that you've had to replace. What is the largest or most challenging change you have made to the script since you started?
I have a thought on that. I think one of the biggest challenges was finding the way to start Act Two. We have had so many different songs in that spot. I cannot tell you. In fact, the song that you just heard, You Are More, as the finale, was originally, Phillip envisioned it as something to start Act Two. Different kind of a context, but that was one. We had a song called Find the Girl, which had all the different members of the village realizing that Efwa and Belinda were gone, and what were they going to do about it. And it was very complicated, and I was so proud of it, and it didn't work. It just did not work. We must have had 5, 6 different songs at that spot.
In our last production, we started the act with Edward, with the song What's Possible, which actually used to be a song was written for Catherine, because to sing all about how she felt guilty about meddling in this family's affairs. So that song was not a love song at first at all. It was only that very agitated version that you heard Edward sing the second time, and it was all about Catherine and Edward being very agitated about their predicaments. So that at one time opened Act Two. Another time we had an old song called Wake Up that was a song sung by the Wake Up volunteers, the ones with the signs, all about how to protect yourself from HIV.
It was very graphic.
That song has since gotten cut. I think the reason why we're very happy with this current opening is because we feel like this song, No Control, is really is like a door. It's a portal into a different world than we've seen in Act One. And one of the things that we found difficult and that we got responses from audiences were, well, we love both of these acts, but they seem like they're kind of different shows. And I think we finally have hit upon that thing that allows us to go from one world, which is difficult, but not nearly as scary as our Act Two world. And I hope you all felt that transition worked. I think we're finally feeling good about that.
Yeah, originally we had those ladies that worked for Caesar at the very end in the market. When Caesar came to pick them up, they were there. And that was a change. We decided you're not going to see them until the beginning of Act Two.
So that's just the beginning of Act Two. So you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I will say I first learned about this show when last year I started with the company, and so we did a reading last year in June, and then another one after auditions in November, and so I've seen 2 readings of it, and I feel like Kanika especially has had the most growth and change and influence over the show, and it's been really wonderful to watch that whole process happen.
Yeah, she always had potential. I mean, I always knew her background. I always knew her, where she was coming from, the levels of her character, and this incredible song, No Control. It's incredible. Really, was cherry on the ice cream sundae.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit with the audience about what the rehearsal process for this world premiere production has been like?
Great.
For you guys? For you guys, just
amazing.
watching everything?
I mean, really amazing. First of all, the theater and the theater staff and production people were so professional, so competent, so supportive of the work. And there was a feeling, right from the beginning, there was a feeling in the cast and in the room when we were rehearsing that everybody was encouraged and embracing the show, embracing the material, embracing the fact that the story had to be told. And at the same time, I've had many rehearsals of shows, and I've never seen so few people go, what does that mean? Or, how do I do that? You know, I mean, they really seem to catch on and feel comfortable with the characters they were portraying.
And I would just add that everyone's been very supportive of allowing this rehearsal process to also be a development process.
Mm-hmm.
There are songs that were in this show 4 weeks ago that are not in this show today.
Right.
We opened on Thursday. On Tuesday, these actors were getting new dialogue. So this process and the openness and competency of this process has allowed us to make a better show for you now than we had just 4 weeks ago.
And everyone was willing to roll with it. We would come with new tweaks, new changes, and say, "Is this okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's the way it's done." And that was fantastic. It was the development itself was always welcomed and encouraged. We would get feedback from the executives here, who would nudge us ever so gently toward what they felt was right, and always allowing us freedom. Tons of artistic freedom, but also guidance, which was great.
And
And fresh eyes.
our director, who's not here, and our choreographer, and our set designer and lighting designer. But the set designer, I mean, this story, you can't pause in this story. It's like it goes from one event to the other. And the set designer had things go whoop, boop, up, you know. So it's just one thing happens after another. It never that
stops.
story would not be told that way without.
And then Phillip, is this the first time you've heard full orchestration on your score?
It's actually the second time.
Oh, that's
we
right.
did have a production
Hint.
last year, but
A developmental
production
of it.
at a university. But it is glorious to hear it here. It really is.
Yeah, they sound amazing. So what's your next dream for My Heart is the Drum?
Well,
Yes.
I think our first dream is for you all to go and tell 10 friends about the show.
There you go. That's a good dream.
And they tell 10 friends.
Yeah.
Well, we want to see more productions, and we have hopes it will go to Broadway. That's the dream, that's the hope, and that's the plan.
Great. I'd love to open it up to hear some questions from the audience for the writers. Anything about the show, the research they did, the characters, the music, anything. You can also share things you liked. Well, to get it rolling in a fun way, this is my favorite question that I always like. I feel like there's always one specific moment, like a lyric, a musical expression, one moment that every time you get there, you're like, yes. You get so excited, and it just fills you up with joy. What is that in this show for each of you? And I know there are many, so just pick one fun thing that maybe we didn't notice the first time watching.
I think for me, it's no control. And it's very hard. It's very hard to have to communicate to somebody has no idea, and she has her own issues. And it was very, very difficult for Phillip and Stacey to write that song, and it's just sensational.
In addition to there being many starts to Act 2, other songs, there were 2 other versions of that song as well.
Right, I forgot.
For me, one of my favorite moments is during I Am Edward Adu, when his paranoid fantasy has hit its height. And in his brain, the people are saying that Effa might be hacked in little pieces, packed away where you'll never look.
I love that too.
I'm kind of a dark gal at heart. But
What's a really fun words to sing? Hacked. Anyways, it's fun.
But if anybody also has songs that really spoke to them, if you don't have questions, or even if you do, that's always really wonderful for us to know. Something that struck you in any way, either made you laugh or moved you or anything.
My favorite one is Girls, though, I have to say.
Girls.
Yeah.
I think for me, I love one of the things that I loved about writing the show and about African music in general is that it allows for many layers. Layers of singing, harmonies, counterpoints, layers of instrumental music. And so like for me, like the finale with all its many layers, you have Nana, you have this group of women. You know, when Nana comes in, then the whole cast starts singing this chorale underneath her, and these other three women are singing this moving line, and the lyrics are so beautiful: as we change, as we grow, we are more than we know. And I really like that moment when we arrived there. You know, the refrain, "We are more." We actually, one of the lovely things about that refrain is that we collectively found that.
That's true.
We were rewriting the finale. We had another finale. We needed to rewrite it. We sat in a room. Actually, we were at a writer's retreat in Connecticut. We sat in a room and we wrote, I think, about 60 or 70 different possible chorus hooks for that song. And we slept on them. And the next day we went through the list and we crossed a bunch off. I think we ended up with 3 finalists. And we all picked "We Are More" or "You Are More," one of the two. "You Are More," I think. And I just love that that has all of our imprint on that.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yes. That's lovely. Yeah.
What we've done throughout the process is we've had colleagues and friends who either are Ghanaian or cultural experts on Ghana read the script and be involved. A Ghanaian author has read the script a couple of times and given us comments. I have kind of a mentor, a drumming teacher who started a school in rural Ghana, who's played drums for us and who's read the script and given his comments. And a couple other people too over the course of the process.
Yeah, there's an author that we knew, that young woman. Yeah.
Jenny's hairdresser is Ghanaian.
What?
Your hairdresser is Ghanaian, right?
My hairdresser, that's right.
So she would run things by her?
My hair is really like this, so I get it flattened.
Well,
So.
and I remember talking with Sonia. She's done some studying in Africa. Who was our choreographer. So a lot of the stuff, it was fun to watch her in auditions, which is the part that I have the most part in, being like, well, you know, in the urban areas, the traditional dance is more like this, and just watch her go and like play with them, and it was all very naturalistic based on like what she had seen and experienced, rather than, because she's a ballet dancer, she's a ballerina, and so it was really fun to watch her really take what was honest and true from the culture that she had been familiar with and put it on stage.
I think what's behind that question is something that's very important to us, which is we all know that we are not Ghanaian, we're not African. And, you know, when writing about people who are different, I think there are some people who say sometimes you should avoid writing about people who are different. I don't agree with that. I think when you write about people who are different, you simply have to give as much respect to those people and their place and time as you can, and that means doing research and talking to people and having people look at what you do, and if you get something wrong, changing it.